This is a Triple J podcast.
Hello, it's another episode of Science with Dr. Karl in your podcast feed. My name is Lucy Smith, and on this week's episode, we settled some debates. We had someone who was beefing with their girlfriend about whether frozen veggies hold the same nutritional value as regular veggies. We had a couple of housemates who couldn't decide whether the window needs to be opened or closed during the heat. What keeps the cool air inside? We settled both of these. Sort of. Let's find out. My name is Lucy Smith. We are doing Science with Dr. Karl over the next hour. And Dr. Karl, you've come into the studio and you've told me three things. One about Lily Allen's new album. One about nitrous oxide. The other about massages. What one do you want to talk about? You get one choice. What one do you want to talk about right now?
Nitrous, because this fits into being a public health announcement, PSA.
Okay.
So I used to think that because nitrous came and went, that it didn't have any long-term problems. So you go to the dentist and you're thinking, wow, I'm getting pain relief and also getting a little bit of anesthetic effect, but I'm getting an dissociative, which is fancy medical talk for high. I'm getting a high and it's legal and it feels great. And then when I walk out, I can drive my car because there's nothing in my bloodstream that will influence me. Therefore, I thought, and this is where I was wrong, it has no long-term effects. But about 1,000 people each year are turning up to casualty.
Wow.
Because the nitrous poisons forever some of your vitamin B12. You know, vegetarians, iron, B12. And B12, the vitamin, has cobalt. The nitrous oxide irreversibly oxidizes it. Now, if you go to the dentist, like 4 times a year, you're losing maybe a few percent each time. It's not a big deal. And in a little Nang, there's little blue cylinders.
No.
Right? Never heard of them, but you might see them around. They've got 8 grams of nitrous. On one hand, that'll turn half a kilo of cream into 1.5 kilo, half a litre of cream into 1.5 litres of whipped cream. Hooray. But it'll give you 2 highs. And we're not talking about somebody having the Nang every now and then. We're talking about people who buy it in 3 kilo lots and go through it on a weekend.
Wow.
And you're poisoning your B12, in some cases forever. So you only have to eat more B12. And it can cause... You remember we did that experiment with people touching their nose?
Yeah.
Okay. So with your eyes shut, you can bring your index finger, to the tip of your nose with your eyes shut, and that's called proprioception. With B12, you destroy, with the B12 being desactivated, you destroy the sheath on the nerve. You have problems with your peripheral and central conduction, you lose proprioception. So when you walk down the street, you're going left foot, right foot. You don't have to look where they are. You know where they are. And you lose that. And also you get a whole bunch of things. You get numbness, weakness, the change in gait, falling. You get something called subacute combined neurodegeneration. Any disease with combined you want to avoid. And you've got your peripheral and central neuropathy. And you can have psychiatric syndromes, delusions, depression, hallucinations, all the way to being psychopathic.
So how did this get on your radar this week?
Somebody contacted me because I'm gearing up to do a podcast about drug testing at festivals. And a person said, look, before we do that, I know a bit about nitrous. I said, nitrous is harmless. And she said, you don't know, you're wrong. And I said, thank God somebody is telling me something I don't know.
Wow.
And so you can also end up with anemia and bone marrow suppression, and it can be permanent. And with you got the 3 kilo cylinder, you put it between your thighs and you squirt a bit, and it gets cold as the gas comes out. They don't have feeling, they've got numbness, and so at the end of the weekend they turn up at casualty off their face, wait for it, with frostbite between their thighs.
Oh my God.
So getting the nitrous from the dentist every now and then, perfectly fine, but getting the 3 kilo jar, no. All drugs are poison. What matters is the dose. This has been a Triple J PSA. Let's get cheerful.
One to start with. Goodness me. Gosh.
I know. I had no idea because I thought that because it was out of your system that there were no long-term effects. I was wrong.
And you're always asking questions, you're wanting to know more. When you do this kind of podcast episode, where can we find it?
It'll be on Shirtloads of Science, and it'll be appearing towards the end of the year, roughly the time when our 100 TikToks on climate change are coming out. So Shirtloads of Science, you can listen to this one with Dr. Angela Chiu, who is a toxicologist. So they're the sort of person when you ring up and said, my dog ate these drugs out of the medical cabinet, or this child has eaten this, she can occasionally be on the end of the line and saying, okay, this is the situation, and you know you're getting good medical advice for free. Isn't Australia a lovely country?
Wow, great episode. If you want to be the first to know when it drops, make sure you are following Shirtloads of Science wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, Dr. Karl on social, so you can see our shenanigans right here on Triple J, answering your science questions every single week. And we're starting with Maddie in Ngunnawal country. Dr. Maddie, talk us through what's happening with your ice tray, because you've noticed something each week.
Hi, doctors. We've got this silicone ice cube tray. It's happened twice now. It doesn't happen every time, but I put it in the freezer yesterday, opened it up this morning, and it has grown, only one of them has grown a vertical spike crystal out of the top of it, and none of us can figure out why.
Wow, so it's sitting and then the icicle is rising out of it.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
There's nothing coming from the roof of the freezer or anything. It's really bizarre.
And how high does it rise? Like half the thickness of the ice cube, or the thickness of the ice cube?
About an inch, I'd say. It's probably about the thickness of the tray, yeah.
There's been articles about this in the New Scientist, and sometimes it goes 2 times the thickness of an ice cube. And what's happening is that the water is freezing. And as it freezes, it expands by about 10%. And under certain circumstances, you can have the outside's freezing and the inside is still liquid, and it's being squeezed out by the expansion of the ice on the outside of it, and you get a little bubble pushed up. And that freezes, then underneath that, the water is still liquid, and then that freezes, and it keeps on pushing up and up and up. And so in some cases, you can have really high these stalagmites, because if it grows enough, it might reach the ceiling, as opposed to a stalactite, which has to hang on tightly to the ceiling. So you might find that the freezer door is leaking air. This sometimes happens. So get a sheet of fairly, just ordinary paper, A4 paper, and then make a strip maybe the thickness of your finger and thickness of the paper and as long as your finger, and then just shut the door and try and pull it up against the rubber. So the rubber will try to hold it, and as you go around, you pull, you feel a resistance, you find. If you get to one stage and suddenly the paper just slips up, there's no resistance, that's where the air is leaking in and you're getting a current. That might not be the case, but it's a good thing to do to save energy and also get things freezing faster in your freezer. Also, try to keep it towards the centre where the air currents are less, but you might have it happening, and just enjoy it for the fun.
Interesting. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Maddie. We
Thank
got
you,
Kyle in Bendigo. Now, Kyle, you heard a track earlier in the show. I saw you. What's your question for Dr. Karl based off of that track?
G'day, doctors. Yes, so the song was Glue by Bicep, which is a beautiful song in my opinion, and the YouTube comments of several thousand people might agree as well. But why does, my question is, why does the deep techno melodic side of it scratch my brain, and it nearly moves me to tears every time I hear it, and a bunch of other people as well.
Is the magic number around 100 BPM? Is it 120?
I'd say it's pretty close to that, yeah.
Let me look it up.
Yeah, so what you got is, if you have music which has rich, lush tonal scales and then gentle rising things.
130 BPM.
Right, okay.
In the key of E minor.
I don't know about the key, but I do know that around 100 to 125, that combined with gradual dynamic changes, with a background of every now and then throwing in the lushness and the gentle rising, can set off the hormones going in your blood, including cortisol. And on the bad side, which is not happening to you, you can have the Takotsubo thing, Takotsubo, cardiomyopathy, where on one hand, people who've been together for a long time, and one of them dies, the other one dies shortly after, and this is thought to be causing about 2 to 10% of deaths of cardiac disease, where you release cortisol and a whole bunch of other hormones, and they get released around your heart. They get released around there. And so in your case, you're getting the good effect. So the music is setting off the hormones, and luckily you're not dying, you're having a good time, as you should have, as you deserve to have.
And that same release impacts the tears as well? If people feel like crying, or they maybe are brought to tears by certain songs?
I've had that happen occasionally. Yeah, I forgot about that. So what does it for you, bringing out the tears?
What would bring out the tears? Oh, I get a little bit throaty when I hear Radiohead, No Surprises.
That one
Love
does it
that
for
song,
you.
yeah, just gorgeous. But and there's something about it, and I don't know if it's kind of like the lullaby feel of it. I don't know if it just takes me back to certain memories listening to it while I was sad on public transport, feeling like I'm in a movie. I'm not sure.
We don't know, and we still don't know whether it was music that led us to having language. So we evolved from grunting into music and language. We don't know. But that's one nice hypothesis or guess.
Yeah, I guess it kind of tickles that nostalgia bone as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big time.
Awesome.
Well, there you are, a drug-free high.
Yeah.
This has been your second Triple J PSA announcement.
Oh, thanks, Kyle. We've got
Thank you, Karl.
Mitch in Meandon, Brisbane. You've got a hypothetical for us, Mitch. What do you want to know?
Good morning, doctors. If someone was invisible, would they also be blind because the rods or cones in their eyes wouldn't absorb the light?
If somebody was invisible and light could go through all of their structure, they couldn't see because light would be coming in to their rods and cones from every single direction instead of a single narrow bit of the world in front of you. So they'd be just flooded with light and they couldn't see. So the only way around it would be to have them invisible except for their eyeballs, so you just see this invisible person's eyeballs and nothing else. I had never thought of that. You are dead right, Dr. Mitchell, 100% correct.
Because it's made me think of that TV show from the late 90s or early ooze. I think it was just called The Invisible Man, who could make himself invisible at will. And I'm just like, wouldn't he just run into stuff if he was invisible?
Yeah, and wasn't that in that series called Wednesday, where one of her friends could make herself invisible? Don't want to do any spoiler alerts here.
Oh, my God. So, wait, is that a spoiler alert or no? No.
Yeah, I didn't.
No.
Not for me.
Okay.
That person does exist, but it doesn't dramatically change your enjoyment. Have you seen her do her dance?
Yes.
Oh, my God,
So
doesn't she
good.
rock?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Well, Mitch, thank you so much for your question. I always love questions around movies or TV shows. Maybe if you want to fact check something, you can send it to Dr. Karl. Mitch, have a great day.
Thank you.
We're doing science with Dr. Karl. And I'm going to give this next question a bit of a content warning, a bit of a vomit warning, a bit of a queasy warning. Lou on Ngunnawal country. Do you want to tell us the story?
All right. Sorry to anyone that's eating in advance. So I cook for my dog, and one of the things I put in her complete and balanced food is chicken livers. As I was chopping up the livers, one of the livers burst open and this yellowy, greeny liquid came out of the liver, and it gave me a bit of a surprise. And so I looked inside it and it had something green inside the liver, and I just tossed it because I thought it must be off. But what was wrong with that liver, Dr. Karl?
So when you say something green amongst this liquid, do you mean it was a liquidy thing? Was it a mucus-looking thing? What was it, a solid?
It looked solid-ish, but I was too grossed out to look at it in depth.
Yeah. Dr. Karl, what do you reckon?
If you're ever in doubt, throw the food away because you.
If
always
in
get
doubt, throw it out.
Okay, right. But then, secondly, in the early part of this century, last century, Mawson went down to the Antarctic. Everybody in his team died. The only way he could survive was by eating the livers of the dogs, and he got an almost fatal dose of something, and he turned yellow, but he survived. So too much liver can be bad. 3, the yellow colour is almost certainly, but it might be bacterial infection, almost certainly the breakdown products of hemoglobin. So you make about 2.5 million red blood cells every second. They've got a life of about 120 days. They then go into your spleen, under your rib cage on the left-hand side. They get pulled out of circulation, and then they get shoved over to the liver on the right-hand side, and then the hemoglobin molecule is recycled. And some of it that can't be thrown away gets then put back into the gut via liver to gallbladder and then into the gut. And there's various chemicals in there that will help break down fats. So on one hand, the stuff coming out of the gallbladder, out of the liver is good. But there's also other chemicals that are not needed that we have to throw out in our urine. And in this case, maybe they didn't go there. They come by the name of urobilinogen. In other words, it goes to urine and it's what we call bile. And there's also another thing called biliverdin. Now, just a little sidetrack here. You might have heard of the composer called Giuseppe Verdi. And Giuseppe Verdi means Joe Green.
Joe Green.
Giuseppe is Joe and Verdi is green.
Nice.
So in English, the biliverdin means green. And so almost certainly maybe what you're looking at is just a partly processed bunch of hemoglobin molecules on their way to the gallbladder and then either into the gut or out into the urine. But it could be a bacterial infection that happens to look yellow-green. And your dog would probably survive. They've got a very short gut, but, if in doubt, throw it out. Don't know. Who would know? If there is a hepatologist, yes, hepatologist, ring in. Or also somebody who is a dog dietitian, please ring in. On 04...
No, but dog dietitian, what about a chicken dietitian to know what was going on in the chook's liver?
Oh, so it's a chook liver as well.
No. So it was the chicken.
Oh, yeah, right.
Cutting
Chicken
into
liver
the
being
chicken.
fed to the dog. It wasn't the dog. Okay, so then we need an ornithologist, hepatologist, dietitian. Somewhere in the world there is that person.
Well, look, Lou, thank you so much for your question.
Yeah.
Thanks for the grace, talking
Thank
us
you.
through it as well. Really appreciate it. And also good on you for looking after your dog.
Yeah, look after your dog because in many cases you will live longer and the dog will live longer because you've got this wonderful relationship together. And there is this weird thing that if you look at the dog and the dog looks at you, if you are a female, both of you get an increase in oxytocin in your brains.
Aww.
But if you're a male, it doesn't happen. We don't know why.
Damn. Missing out.
You're doing the right thing there. You're doing God's work or the work of the angels, Dr. Lou.
Thanks, Lou. We got Chris in Melbourne. Now, Chris, you're having a debate with your girlfriend. What's going on?
Yeah, I'm hoping you can settle this for me, Dr. Karl. I cook for myself a lot, so I'm a bit lazy. I just go to the freezer and get out some frozen veggies to go with my protein, and I sort of think that's a good option. My girlfriend doesn't rate it. She reckons that the nutritional value's reduced because it's frozen, and I kind of don't agree with her. So I'm hoping you can help me out.
It's tricky. It goes back to a person called Charles Birdseye in the 1920s in Inuit territory in Canada. And he realised that they would catch their fish and then just freeze them. And blow me down, if they did it the right way, the texture was great and the nutritional value was maintained. He then went into bird's eye freezing and freezing vegetables. So the dietitians tell you that on one hand, if you get the vegetables fresh off the farm, they run, not walk, with the vegetables to the freezer, and they snap freeze them. In that instant, all the nutrients are trapped and very few of them will be damaged by the freezing process. The other side of the coin is but also, unfortunately, you're losing a bit of the texture when you thaw them out. But then if you wait for them to go through the chain to the supermarket, the freezer, all that sort of stuff, the time is greater and some of the things might go away. I remember talking with Professor Claire Collins, and she was saying in some cases they're actually better for you. But the thing is that at least you're eating vegetables. Now, are you eating a couple of cups of vegetables each day?
Oh, let's go. Yeah, let's say yes.
Yeah, okay. But now you are doing what Frank Zappa advised, or at least half of what he advised, which is you can't have too much sex or vegetables. So we need Claire Collins to tell us, but I'm kind of thinking from my memory of having spoken with her that you're probably catching more of the nutrients with the frozen food, but you're missing out on the texture. And by the way, my favourite meal is steamed soybeans with one of each colour of frozen of regular vegetables steamed with tahini on it, going back to my hippie days. I love tahini.
Nice. Go
I
on.
even had tahini coffee.
Did ya?
Yeah. In New York, I had tahini coffee slushy.
Nice.
I think so.
Like it was like an icy thing.
Slushy with coffee and tahini.
How much did that cost you?
A
Don't
credit
do a
card.
phone.
I just
Yeah.
swiped. I got no. Oh, the way it works is it costs so many, 3 or 4 of the local units, and it doesn't matter whether you're in a wealthy country or poor country. It's 3 or 4 rupees or 3 or 4 pounds or 3 or 4 rupees or something like that.
Either way, was it yummy?
Oh my God!
So
I'm hanging
good.
out for it.
Thanks, Dr. Chris.
Thank
We've
you, Dr.
got Elsie or Elise in Newcastle. What's your question?
Hey guys, I was wondering, do our brains only decline because they're inside a human body, or is it possible, let's say if you were to upload a brain to like a server or put it in an artificial body, would the brain just keep going?
On one hand, the majority of the nerve cells do not regenerate, and you're going to get wear and tear. On the other hand, the brain is a dynamic organ that changes so much that now we're finding old person deafness in young people who use noise reduction headphones. So let's just run through the brain. At the age once you become really old, like over 22 or something, your brain weighs 2% of your body weight, uses up 20% of your energy when you're resting. But when you are aged 8 to 12, it uses up 50% of your energy. And it's laying down new connections, but also very carefully destroying old ones, so that while you remember your 13 times tables, you don't forget how to use a knife and fork. And this varies during life. And so in aging, we're just barely understanding what's going on. We did a study which looked at 100 people, and instead of analysing their blood for 6 things, looked at 135,000. As well as chemicals in their skin, their feces, their urine, their sweat. And they got 250 billion data points, and they found that there was one quick aging in your mid-40s-ish when your chemicals related to metabolism went down by 80%. And you got people saying, I'm doing the same exercise and I'm doing this, eating the same, but I'm putting on weight. And then in the mid-60s or 70s, immune system's chemicals drop by 80% and you can get infections, and we haven't looked at what's happening with the brain. So on one hand, there is a bit of a decline, but on the other hand, we can tweak the DNA in the future that this decline is reversed, so we could be effectively living immortal. Has that answered your question? Have I just gone off on a total tangent?
Anything you say is interesting, so perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, so there is a bit of decline, but not necessarily. And so, for example, in women, it turns out that they think, oh, I'm getting a bit vague. That can be one of the effects of not having enough estrogen post-menopause. And so having the hormone replacement therapy can bring that back, and you're thinking, I didn't know there was that link. No. So, yeah, and things go like, I remember I got really scared about 6 months ago. I forgot the language that they speak in Hong Kong for 4 hours, which is Cantonese. But on the other hand, I've been shoving so much stuff into my brain while I was in that 4-hour window, and I was reading about black holes and adenosine triphosphate, mitochondria, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. But you waited the 4 hours to remember. You didn't just Google it?
Don't worry. Oh, no. I wanted to see what would happen. And where did it go? Have you ever had that where something's on the tip of your tongue and it comes back? In that 5-minute window, where
does it go? Where is it hiding?
Why is it hiding? And why did it hide? Why didn't it just come and obey you and come out?
Yeah,
what's wrong with it?
Thanks for your question, Elise.
Thank you, Dr. Elise.
Before we get to another song, we've got Connor in Bendigo. Dr. Connor, you got a question about bees. We love bees.
Yes, I do. So I just wanted to know, do bees instinctively know how to make honey as soon as they're born, or do they need to be taught by other bees?
Overall, it's overwhelmingly instinctive, hardwired behaviour. And in the beehive, you have some of them are going to turn into queens because they're fed a different food, which does something involving epigenetics and methylation of the DNA, and others will be the workers, and others will be looking after the nursery, and others will be the warriors. So on one hand, they're driven, if they're going down that pathway of being a sterile female, they're the workers, to go and visit the flowers by instinct, but there is some degree of training as well as they talk to each other. So if you're a female bee going out to look for honey, and then suddenly another bee comes in front of you and does the waggle dance. The waggle dance was discovered about 40 years ago, and it's basically saying, fly in that direction at this angle to the sun for this distance and start sniffing, and then you'll find something. So it's a combination of instinctive plus learned behaviour, watching their older ones, as well as being told what to do on a day-to-day basis via the waggle dancer.
earlier in the show, Dr. Karl, we had a question from Lou on Ngunnawal Country who was preparing dinner for her dog. Content warning, squeamish warning. Cut into a chicken liver. There was a bit of a yellowish liquid and then she could see something green amongst it. We've got Rick, the chicken keeper in Tassie, who says the green bile in the liver is definitely from the gallbladder. The bile is safe to eat but is quite bitter. I've seen this in a couple of chickens I had. All were healthy, but a couple had this in their liver. What do you reckon? I trust Rick.
Yeah, because he sees it all the time. There is that thing where people build up knowledge over time, and that should be respected.
Mm-hmm. Rick,
Yeah.
the chicken keeper.
Thank you.
We love it.
We love you.
If you've got an instant react, let me know. 0439 757 555. Let's go to Ewan in Boorloo, Perth. Ewan, what would you like to know?
I just wanted to know how high pain tolerance works and what is the science behind it.
Do you feel you have a high pain tolerance, Ewan?
Yeah, I've been told that many a time.
Okay, Dr. Karl.
There's a whole bunch of factors involved. So straight away at the very beginning, there's genetic factors. So there are people in Pakistan who have a mutation of, I think, the 19th type of sodium-potassium pump, and they don't feel any pain. And a woman in the United Kingdom who makes lots of endocannabinoids, her own natural cannabis, so she doesn't feel pain. So you might have that to a lesser degree. So that's one genetic factor. The painkillers that you make yourself, it turns out that the runner's high, where you might damage your ankle and not feel it, is due not to endorphins, but endocannabinoids. And so you have these painkillers that you can release yourself as you need them. Then you can, the pain only registers in your brain if it can travel there on a nerve. And there are nerve pathways by which you can damp that down. You can train yourself to switch on those pathways so you dampen down the actual pain signals coming to the brain. And then there's all the psychological things like the attention and the mood. And then there's also hormonal changes during life. There's a whole lot of things that go into this whole pain thing. What do you find is strongest for you?
Honestly, I think I find more the psychological part would most likely be the strongest. I mean, I've broken 8 bones.
What?
All in the span of 18 months.
What, on 8 separate occasions?
Yeah.
What? Tell me more.
I mainly like to play hard. A lot of it was more just playing soccer, football, basketball, all sports injuries.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about your medical history, but I would recommend perhaps backing off just a tad.
Yeah.
Playing a little less hard.
I'm at the other end. So when I go to the dentist, firstly I suck on the nitrous, and while I'm sucking on the nitrous, I say, okay, you got to look at this gum. Now, smear some of the anaesthetic jelly and wait 1 minute. Now, get a tiny needle with a tiny syringe and put in a tiny amount of local anaesthetic and wait 1 minute. Okay, now you can get the big needle joined to a syringe the size of a bicycle pump and go for it. You know, whereas if they approach me with a big...
you have a low pain tolerance?
Incredibly low. I'm a wuss.
Right, interesting.
But on the other hand, I came across one guy who was a Vietnamese guy, and he was really lean. When I was in casualty, and he came in, and he was limping a little bit. And I said, you okay? And he said, yeah. I said, are you in pain? He said, oh, a little bit. It turned out he had burst his appendix. And what happens, that sets off all the muscles in your gut, on front and rear, just to clamp solid to reduce the pain. We call that, I forget the name, it'll come to me in a minute, guarding. And then I felt his tummy, and it was like pressing on the table that you and I are at right now, Lucy. There was just no give.
Oh, my
And
gosh.
he was really lean. And just for fun, I said, do you mind if I just try this experiment? I got a coin, and it bounced off his tummy. It was like a table. So I called in all the nurses to see this, because this is like a once-in-a-lifetime thing.
Before you got to him, let's do this coin trick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
I wasn't holding up his medical treatment.
Of course, of course.
No, okay.
Ewan, does that give you something to work with?
Yeah, it definitely gives me something interesting to go back to my psychology teacher and tell.
Yeah,
And,
excellent.
Yeah, and back off a little bit, mate. Eight bones in 8 separate incidents is perhaps suboptimal. This has been your third Triple J PSA.
Yeah, thanks, Ewan.
Yeah. Thank you.
We got Kim in Tassie. Dr. Kim, talk to us. We've got a dishwashing question.
Yeah, g'day, doctors. I just wanted to know if people don't rinse the bubbles off their dishes, does it have an effect on your gut, like similar to emulsifiers?
A microscopic effect, but it's very minor. Soap has been around for thousands of years. You get the ashfur tree and you join it with a few other things. The Romans had it, the Greeks had it. It's been around for a long time and it's overwhelmingly non-toxic. But the soap molecule is interesting. One end of it loves fatty things and the other end loves water. So if it's still there on your plate, it could be hanging on to some of the bad things in your food. Now, almost certainly, they're not going to be bad because you ate it just half an hour ago, but if you're washing plates that are maybe 3 days old, then there could have been bad bacteria that are floating there in the soap bubble, and by rinsing them off, you remove the soap and the soap is grabbing the bad bacteria. Now, that's a very unlikely situation. So you don't have to, but you're going to get a bit of a soapy taste. In most cases, it will not give you bad health effects unless you have heaps and heaps and heaps of it. Is that your situation? Did you have lots of soap bubbles or just enough?
No, I just wanted to find a scientific reason to make my sister rinse the dishes.
Right.
So true.
And so you're washing by hand rather than in a dishwasher?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you need just enough soapy liquid that by the time you get to the end, there's hardly any bubbles left.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's too much. But on the other hand, washing a really big load like you'd fit into a dishwasher is 130 litres of water, but in the dishwasher, the modern one, 20 litres, and it uses less energy as well. On the other hand, you miss out on that companionable discussion of, hi, how's things going, as opposed to, hey, sister, it's your turn to do the dishwashing.
Yeah.
But you should do it together because it's friendly.
But also, no, Kim, I know what you mean. It's diabolic when people just don't do that final rinse.
I know. There is a taste thing. Okay, there is a taste thing.
So
yeah.
hang on. Have we answered this for you, Kim? Do you have something to go back with?
Yeah, absolutely have.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
Awesome. Before we could take a song, thanks, Kim. Ella in Ngunnawal country, what do you want to know about muscle?
Hey, doctors, I am wondering, is it possible to have too much muscle? So we're constantly told the more muscle you have, the healthier you are. But does it get to a point where you can have too much muscle that it is detrimental to your health?
Okay, we're looking at it from 3 points of view with regard to longevity and health in life. Muscle strength, cardiovascular, and flexibility. Putting on lots of muscle does nothing for flexibility and cardiovascular, but you're dead right. You should have some degree of muscle. You can have too much muscle. If you watch that fabulous movie Pumping Iron by Arnold Schwarzenegger, you'll see them all having a little rest at the Sydney Opera House, and they're lying on these beds in the back rooms of the Opera House, and their legs are straight out, and their arms are above their head, and they've got so much muscle that their hands can't reach the pillow or can't reach the bed. Their arms are up at 45 degrees because they've got too much muscle.
Oh.
So you can have too much muscle if it interferes with your flexibility. So you're looking at 3 different things here. You're looking at either bodybuilding, where you want to have something that to the judges look aesthetically pure, and in that case you've got to go for too much muscle. But if you're looking at weightlifting, that's a different bunch of muscles you want. And by the way, the people who can jump the highest from a standing start are the weightlifters, because they crouch down and they pick up like half a ton of iron on their shoulders. And so they've got thigh muscles, and they can, from a standing start, jump to higher than your hips. So they have enough muscles, but they could be causing damage to their bones. And then finally, you've got what is probably right, the muscle you need for a particular sport, whether it's short-term running, sprinting or endurance running or basketball, etc., etc. With netball, Australia's most popular sport, you really need to build up the muscles above and below your knee to protect that diabolical thing that evolution or God gave us, the knee joint. So you can have too much muscle, but in general, probably not. But watch that movie, Pumping Iron. It's a great movie.
Thanks, doctors.
Thanks, Ella. Aaron in Castle Hill. Dr. Aaron, you're having a bit of a debate with your roommate. What's going on?
Hello, another arguments between flatmates. So summer is here. When it gets really hot outside, let's say 40 degrees, I would close all the glass windows, and I will also close the shutters. We have shutters on the outside. But then to stop the hot air from coming into the house. But then my flatmate would leave the windows open with a little bit of a gap, they would tell me that because having a little bit of a gap would allow air circulation from the outside. But then I would say back to her, well, you're allowing the 40-degree hot air to come in. How should we deal with windows and shutters in summer?
Aaron, move out. No, I'm kidding. Dr. Karl.
This is actually a very high-level discussion, and I did a podcast on this, Shirtloads of Science, with Professor Ollie J. in the early part of 2026. Ollie, O-L-L-E-J-A-Y, and it's complicated, and it deals with the fans themselves. So long as the air temperature inside is less than the air temperature outside, keep the windows shut, but keep a fan going to blow air on you. Now, the trouble with that is that you're slightly cooler, but your mate is absolutely correct. The air is getting stuffy. The carbon dioxide level is getting higher. I've got a carbon dioxide monitor at home, and you're both right. But then, once you've achieved equality with the outside air temperature, just open the windows and just turn the fans on. The fans do not make the air cooler, but they blow over you, and there's a very thin layer of sweat which it evaporates, thus cooling you down. So drink lots and lots of water. If things get really bad, put on a t-shirt and some tracky pants and get into the bath, and then hop out and then walk around the house wet for the next hour.
But Aaron would be correct in that closing the window would keep the air cooler inside.
That's right. For a while.
While it would be stuffier, it would be cooler.
It would be cooler.
On a technicality.
Yeah, but after a day or so, depending on whether it stays hot during the night, you will end up with the inside temperature the same as the outside temperature. What kills people is when it doesn't cool down overnight. And we're now seeing in Pakistan and that part of the world heat domes where it doesn't cool down overnight. On the second or third day, we have tens of thousands of people dying from the heat of global warming. But the good news is we can fix it.
We can fix it.
We can fix it.
Hey, Aaron, you able to play that back to your housemate on the Science with Dr. Karl podcast?
Yes, of course, because every episode is on the website as a podcast, all right?
Yes, yep. Absolutely, Aaron.
And don't forget to go to Shirtloads of Science, and there's a 20-minute episode on the subtleties that we don't have time to deal with as we head towards the news.
Hell yeah. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.
All right. If you want to check out the Science with Dr. Karl podcast, you can do so wherever you get them. Also on Triple J's YouTube channel and the Triple J app. I'm Lucy Smith. I'll catch you tomorrow. Dr. Karl, I'll catch you next week.
Catch you again.
Let's do it. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Science with Dr. Karl. And not to freak you out, but we only have 4 episodes left between now and the end of the year. So if there is a question that you have been wanting to ask Dr. Karl, now is the time to do it. We take questions on Thursdays from 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time and then answer them live at 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time on Triple J via the text line on 0439 757 555. If you are at uni or you're finishing high school, I would also love to hear from you on that number. If there's a question that you've been wanting to ask Dr. Karl, maybe you've just finished exams, please throw it our way via the Triple J text line on a Thursday. I'm Lucy Smith. This episode was produced by Josh Brennan, and we'll catch you next week. Bye.
Dave Marchese here from the Triple J Hack team. Hey, if you love Dr. Karl's podcast like I do, you might enjoy the Hack podcast as well. Each day we bring you the news that matters to you, from the latest science on climate change to what's happening in politics and news around the world. The Hack Podcast. It's your daily fix of the news you need to know. Get it wherever you're listening now.